So I'm gonna go ahead and call the meeting to order. I have 10:07. And I would just ask if you can assist in doing a roll call, please.
Absolutely. Dan Lindblade.
Here.
Bernadette Norris Weeks.
Here.
Mary Peliquin.
Here.
Lon Perkins.
Present.
Earl Frisley.
Here.
Roosevelt Walters. And Chair Bowker.
Here.
You have a quorum.
And just for point of clarification, we're a seven-member committee. So quorum, we would meet quorum with 4. Okay. So just if anyone leaves the room or anything, we just have to, we're still good as long as we have 4 seated. Okay, so next item of business on the agenda is the approval of the draft minutes from our meeting on October 11, 2024. Do I have a motion?
I move to accept the minutes of October 11th, 2024.
A second? Great. Any discussion on the motion? There being no discussion, I'm gonna call the vote. All in favor of the approval of the minutes as presented for October 11 meeting, please indicate by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion passes unanimously. Okay, so we are gonna move on now to item number 4, the discussion of the recruitment process.
Okay, good morning all.
Good morning.
Host, Director of Human Resources. Just to recap where we are on schedule with the proposed timeline or the draft timeline that was presented earlier this year. The city manager position was posted in all of the sites or with all of the sites that were designated to you earlier this year as well. We did receive 84 total candidates. Daly Lohman from MGT did her homework as was scheduled and narrowed down the recommended list to, I believe, 13 candidates that are in the packet before you today. I will let you know that Daly is going to be here in person today. Her flight was scheduled to land at 9:50 this morning, so she will be joining us as soon as she possibly can after that. The purpose of today's meeting is to review the candidates with Daly, and the committee is to whittle down that list of 13 to a manageable number of candidates that you would like to interview as a committee on January 9th as scheduled. So that is the primary task for today. We do have a member of our Strategic Innovations division and with us today. He will assist with the tabulation of the votes, and we do have a tally sheet available for you. Roosevelt Walters is not here today, and by sunshine laws, I don't believe we can include his choices. Although he has communicated them to me, I cannot share them with you at this time. So unfortunately, one of the members will not be able to include his choices. Once we decide who the recommended choices to interview will be, me and my staff will contact those individuals and schedule the interviews for January 9th. They will be virtual, all of them. So we will meet in this room again. We will have the virtual interviews. And then you will need to deliberate at some point who you would like to recommend to the city commission for the final interviews. Now, a decision will need to be made today as to how you want to deliberate. My original timeline had a thought process where you would deliberate at the end of your interviews on January 9th. However, we recognize that you may want to take a little time to ponder the interviews, ponder the information that's been provided to you by the candidates that day, and digest all of that information before making those decisions. That said, we will leave it up to the committee members to decide, do you want to do that all in one day? Or do you want to schedule a separate meeting either the following day, which would be a Friday, or the following week on Monday, preferably as soon after those interviews on the 9th as possible, to have a brief meeting to deliberate and make your choices. So I will leave that up for discussion at this time.
So, committee, yeah, so it is gonna be a very long day on January 9th, Thursday, January 9th, when we end up interviewing, by Zoom, the, you know, and we can discuss this a little bit more, but whether it's, 8 to 10, but, at the moment, we're gonna have, 6 choices presumably, but we may end up with a pool, let's say, of 8, depending on how your calculations work out. So it's gonna be a long day, so I guess I'm curious if we have flexibility with your schedules to reconvene on, as Jerome said, Friday the 10th or on Monday the 13th.
I'm flying up to New York that Friday and back that Monday.
So you
What
would
about
not,
the 14th?
Is that the Tuesday?
Yeah, the Tuesday.
yeah, I think that's a possibility as long as we don't stretch it out too long.
Yeah, that'd be good.
I'm sorry, what?
The Tuesday, the 14th is another option, cause Mary will be out of town.
Okay, let me forewarn you that that will shorten the amount of time that we have to schedule the interviews with the candidates you're recommending to the city commission, because that is scheduled to be held on Tuesday, February 4 at the regular conference meeting that day. We also anticipate that we will have a public meet and greet of the candidates the Monday evening before that date. So the thought from the commission, or the direction from the commission on Tuesday this past week was to schedule a meet and greet for the final candidates for that evening before, and then they would actually interview those candidates the following day. So I'm a little concerned that we would only have a couple weeks to schedule the travel, the arrangements, the arrivals, et cetera. And those candidates may not be able to make the short time.
One day,
Yeah,
one
it's just a
day.
day.
The room's not.
Just be one day.
We want all of the members.
I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about the 14th.
Yeah, we are.
Oh, yeah, so
It is
so
big.
The
Oh, I'm
alternative
sorry,
was
you're
the
right.
13th.
the choices were
Right, I'm sorry, my
the
bad.
13th. Yeah, just cause
No, I think he thought it was different. Yeah, I think he thought it was
How dare you?
different.
I think it's to go see Mary.
Oh, the 14th.
Okay, no, I'm sorry, I was thinking in terms of the calendar that was the following.
You were
week.
thinking it was like another week out. Yeah, it's just about 24 hours off. But having said that, I guess I'm curious, so Tuesday, the 14th works for
We'll
you.
make it work. I don't know, Dan had his hand up.
Can we make that work,
Yes.
and committee members?
Okay, with me.
Okay,
On Tuesday, the 14th for
Tuesday,
deliberation.
January
then.
14th.
We're looking at the calendar for the room availability, and the room is blocked from 9 o'clock
To
to
12:30.
12:30,
working.
but we're working to see if that can be moved.
It's on the
So we could continue to
14th.
meet in the morning.
Okay,
If that's not able, is anybody or everybody available in the afternoon from 2 to 3, 2 to 4?
Sure.
yes.
Yeah.
I actually have a meeting in here that night with the council. I might as well just live here that day.
But I mean,
We
it
can- we
could
can
be
meet
just
in
a
the
different
afternoon.
room, right?
That
Can we
works for
just
me.
have a different room in the same building or somewhere else?
So they
That's
just
fine.
A lot of rooms.
Chamber's open.
We can buy.
Yeah, the chamber. What about the chamber?
Okay, so we're gonna bump that meeting, so we'll schedule that for
Okay.
10 o'clock on Tuesday, the 14th. And what I think we might do then is, when we select those who are going to interview on the 9th, we'll have Daily communicate to them that they will need to hold the dates or plan for the evening of the 3rd and the 4th to be here, just in case they are selected to move forward.
Good
So they
idea.
hold those dates anyway.
Okay.
Would you like to walk for 2 hours or 1 hour?
What do you think? 2 hours, 1
I
hour?
think we should probably book it for 2, just
Book it for 2, and if we don't need it the whole time, we can always break the later.
The interviews with the commission public.
Yes. Yes, they are. The plan is that because it'll be done during the normal time for the conference meeting, we'll just take up the whole conference meeting on Tuesday, February 4 for the interviews. However many candidates you move forward to the commission, we will have them all there present physically that day. The candidates will be sequestered, although it's a public meeting, we can't force them to not sit in on the other interviews. We can politely ask them to sequester themselves in a room that we will have held for them. And we would expect cooperation. So the commission will interview one candidate at a time. The others will be sequestered, and the selection of the order will be determined prior to that meeting. And then the final item I have relative to this agenda item is a reminder that we will need questions for the interviews for you on the 9th. Obviously, with a position of this level, we don't need to have consistent questions for everybody, although it is helpful and recommended that you have a lot of the same questions relative to the economy of the city, the structure of the city, their intent, et cetera. A lot of those can be the same questions, but if you find items within their backgrounds that don't pertain to others that you want to ask about, you can certainly ask questions. And I would highly recommend, actually, if you see something in the backgrounds that you want more information about, that you do jot those down and take the opportunity to ask those questions.
And Jerome, remind me on, so the process for our questions, you guys would like us to submit our questions?
We would like you to submit the questions to me.
And then once we have told the group at the end of today that we actually are planning to interview, obviously we can tailor, as you're saying, some of the questions.
Right. And really the questions that I would like to have are those questions that you anticipate asking of all of the candidates.
Right, okay. And then I guess then you would like those kind of uniform questions that we all anticipate we're gonna ask everyone. And then on the 9th though, you know, if there obviously is a question that, you know, comes to mind based on a response, we are free to go ahead and ask
Right.
the candidates those questions.
When do you need the questions?
Pardon me?
When do you want the questions?
Look at the calendar again. Probably, I would say by the 31st.
Sure.
One other question about the format of the interviews on the 9th. I guess once we have, you know, the candidates on Zoom, it'll be about 30 minutes, each Zoom interview, I presume. How will we, so is it the standard questions, will it be myself picking those off, or will it be yourself? Or how do you want to do that, I guess?
That's up to the committee.
Okay,
Who you'd like to lead the interview questions, I'll be happy to do it for you.
okay. No, I'm happy to do that, especially if we have some standardized ones, and then like the committee, I do want to be involved in jumping in. Okay, so just want to set the stage for that a little bit.
Any other questions? Oh, yeah. I'm hoping I don't have to say this, but I will. The questions obviously need to be related to the work and to the city, et cetera. Personal questions are to be avoided. Right. Anything related to marital status, gender identity, children, whatever have you. Like I said in an earlier meeting, if you'd like to know what they've done to or for personal reasons to be able to move to the city, you can ask what they've done to prepare for this interview. If they've done any research on the city, if they've looked into the requirements of the job relative to relocation and residency requirements, things like that, but just keep it related to the job, the work, the charter, whatever.
Right, and I guess particular questions about their previous employment. And, you know, obviously some of them have, you know, have indicated why they've left certain jobs. If there is a query on that, that's on the table.
Yes, absolutely. You can ask why they've left previous jobs. You can even ask follow-up questions if there is an answer given that you're not comfortable with or satisfied with. You can do a little more probing. I would be careful about that judgment about getting into personal reasons why they left. But
Sure.
other than that, yeah,
Absolutely, okay. Yeah, and I think this group is very experienced,
they're sophisticated enough.
very sophisticated group I have. So yeah, I guess, thank you, Jerome. Are there any more questions on that particular agenda item? Discussion of the recruitment process.
I will segue into the next agenda item. In that part of this process was to collect citizens' comments, et cetera. And so we have the survey available and the next item, Kristen's going to go through those survey results and tell you what we heard, and I'm sure you've probably already seen on the websites, et cetera, about the information provided by our residents and what they're looking for in the next city manager. We thought if we went over that, and then also the job posting, et cetera, just a review of that, that's in your packets, to determine who you feel is qualified or best qualified for the position as you make your selection for the interviews. Thank you.
And then, that sounds great. Thank you, Jerome. And then Kristen, before you get started, I just wanted to remind the committee, I know you guys have all, this committee is very experienced and sophisticated, as you guys mentioned. This is my first advisory committee with the city. Just a quick reminder as we're going through this process now that there's gonna be a lot more interest, I think, in the committee and on the process now that we've actually got short list of candidates. Just remember, the sunshine laws, no committee members can be meeting together. That would constitute a meeting if you're discussing this particular search or talking about any aspect of the search. I know that you guys are pros at this, but I went back through, Laura sent me the advisory handbook. So anything, hand signals, even sitting back in your chair whispering, it's all considered a meeting under the sunshine that would need to be noticed. So I think we just need to be super hyper aware of that. The image we have going forward. I don't, of course, I don't think there's been any issues. Also just to remind everyone that these meetings, I did request to make sure that they are on YouTube. We're live now on YouTube, so people hopefully are watching us, or they will watch us later. So just keep in mind too, I think in this process, it's a big step to apply to be city manager because it's such a public process. So all of these 94, I believe, candidates were willing to put themselves under this public scrutiny. So I just think going forward in the language that we use as we are cultivating the list of the best fit, if we can just keep it as positive as possible. There's ways, obviously, there's people who are better fits than others, and I think the city is a fantastic place to work. We definitely want to acknowledge everyone who's come forward, put their name forward. And obviously, there's going to be some people who are not as good a fit and others who will be. Hopefully, we have found within this group of 13 our next city manager, but we will just definitely be able to scrutinize the candidates while keeping the language, I think, pretty positive. So I think those are my only comments. And so, yeah, Kristen, if you want to go ahead.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Committee. Kristen Milligan, Deputy HR Director here for the great city of Fort Lauderdale. So as you're all aware, we did the citizen survey. It was out pretty much from September until now. It's actually still up. With the goal of, kind of getting that feedback from the community so that you're aware of what they're looking for. And also, as we previously discussed, it might guide you all as you develop these questions. Knowing what the community thinks is important can also help you develop those interview questions so you know what to really drill down on. So just a high level overview, I've sent you all this and it is in front of you. Some things that I thought were interesting, we did ask for some demographic information regarding whether or not the people live in the city, work in the city, or both. Interestingly enough, if you look, 55% of the respondents live in the city and 86% of them live and work in the city. So over 80% of our respondents are people who definitely live in the city. The next page, you'll see that there is the breakdown of what districts were most responsive, for your reference. Another thing that I thought was interesting regarding the demographics, over 68% of the respondents have lived in the city over 11 years. So these truly are people who are invested and very, very aware of the challenges we face here in the city. And we had, just so you're aware, almost 200 responses to this. So that's pretty good response rate. We did ask about people's satisfaction with the city. 37.3% said they were satisfied, 6.7 very satisfied, 19.7 very satisfied. Some neutral, some dissatisfied, 17.1% dissatisfied, but for the most part, people said they were pretty satisfied with the city so far. We did provide a ranking system for various questions, the first being experience, what type of experience people felt like was the most important for the next city manager to kind of come to the table with. And the top three were infrastructure improvement, emergency management, and growth management experience. The next question was regarding what the citizens felt the greatest challenges that the next city manager needs to prioritize once they get here. Those top three, infrastructure, sea level rise and flooding, and public safety and crime reduction. Then we asked about the most important attributes of a successful city manager, and those top three were strategic planning and decision making, that they execute thought out plans based on research and data, integrity, that they're demonstrating honesty and ethical decision making even when faced with opposition, and transparency and accountability. They share information, data, and decisions with elected officials and residents to build government trust. We also had an open-ended question. We had over 124 written responses. I have read all of them. And I kind of put together a list for you to share right now of kind of the themes that I noticed as I read through them. One that was repeated quite frequently was that the next city manager truly needs to focus on all neighborhoods in the city, not simply downtown and the beach. That was pretty common. Another was that traffic and public safety need to be a priority. Infrastructure improvement and reining in development. And those two things kind of went hand in hand. Most people who talked about one talked about the other. Homelessness, of course, and affordable housing. Again, those two were very hand in hand. We saw a lot of the same people mentioning those two things. They also said that they felt that the next city manager needs to be fiscally responsible, transparent, and have integrity. You would expect. And then two of the more interesting ones, very, very common, was that they felt that the next city manager needs to be very strong and firm and willing to oppose the commission when necessary. That was actually very common. And then finally, there was a kind of push and pull, kind of as all things on the internet, right? Half the people are saying one thing, half the people are saying the exact opposite. Some people felt like the next city manager needs to be an insider, someone who's lived in Fort Lauderdale a long time, knows the players, maybe even internal candidate, things like that. The other half felt strongly that it needs to be someone outside of the local politics, even outside of Florida, who's going to bring fresh perspective. So do with that what you will. But that's kind of a quick rundown of these results. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about the process or the answers or anything else. Thanks. Yeah.
You may have said this, and if you did, forgive me. Where did the bulk of the responses come from? Was it the mayor's state of city address? Was it online? Was it?
No, most of them were online. We did hand out paper copies at the mayor's state of the city. I believe we had 11 responses. And I entered those personally in here, so they're all captured here. But no, the majority were online.
Okay, thank you.
In fact, I didn't receive any other paper requests for paper copies or anything like that.
Thanks, Kristen. And actually, thank you for summarizing the ad hoc comments. I know number one was they want all neighborhoods, well, these themes that you saw was that, you know, neighborhoods would be treated equally.
Mhm.
What was the second one before infrastructure? Sorry.
No, it's okay.
In your-
It's all my notes.
And your kind of quick comments there.
Public safety and traffic,
Okay, gotcha.
and those things again went very hand in hand.
And how does this compare, I guess, with the amount of respondents compared to other results we've done recently at the city? Is it a fairly robust response comparatively, or?
Can you speak to that, Erica?
Yeah, so we just are looking at our results from our neighbor survey, which is a statistically valid survey that was administered July through September, and we had 606 responses on that, and that is a different target method, that's through social media. Just another response rate to throw out for you. We also got a business survey that we looked at, and the response rate for that was 70-ish, 77 responses. So it seems in line. What was the period?
It
that
was-
you-
This went from September into present, so this report ends December 15th. And there were, read that response rate again. 201 respondents.
201. Okay. And how many did we have for the survey on City Hall?
We had one for each meeting, so we.
Oh.
Yeah,
For each individual.
but the first one was really big and then it tapered off as the meetings
Gotcha.
went along, but I can open up the website.
No,
and let
oh
you
no, it's
know.
not necessary, but I just wanted to do just to kind of understand where we stood others surveys. Thank you for that. Committee, any questions for Kristen on the survey? So I believe now, we do not have Dele yet, as I guess she is in transit. Her flight, as Jerome mentioned, was arriving in I guess 10 to 10. Yeah, so she may be a little delayed. So yeah, I guess we are now at the point in the agenda for her presentation. I guess we can.
You can either recess or you can proceed discussing some of the candidates' backgrounds or questions, concerns, et cetera. Or jot them down so you have them when Dayla gets here. Ask her.
Yeah. So I think one thing I'd like so under this agenda item, which we are moving on to, which is her presentation, but review of candidates. Yeah, I guess I would like to ask the committee just general impressions of the 13. I'm interested if you think we found our next city manager and the 13. And I guess any overarching themes that you saw on this short list.
One of the things that I noticed was that she included a lot of candidates without large city experience. There are a lot of people in here that have managed in the $20 to $40 million range, city budgets with a couple of hundred employees in cities of 20,000. And I don't even know how they've made the short list, because one of my criteria is going to be, can they handle physically the size city that we are today, much less the direction that we're heading. So I think we need someone with experience in at least medium to large size cities and budgets and employees in the thousands, not hundreds. So there were a lot of people I didn't think should have made the short list personally.
You know what, I think one of the things that, through the chair.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that may have been taken into consideration is what commissioners are saying, or commissioners said in their interviews with the consultant. And I say that because as I've spoken with a couple of the commissioners, some of the things that they don't care about And it was just said, you know, I don't care about the size, I don't care about, you know, that kind of thing, that was said. And so I'm thinking when the consultant, because I thought about that too, when I was going, just looking through the book. But I think that must have been a part of it. Now, she'll tell us that she'll confirm that when she comes, but that's interesting because that, at least from two of the commissioners out of the five, I've heard that comment made.
What comment was that?
That they don't really care about how small the city was that they had or how large it was. It's just, they want someone who's ready to go and handle, you know, all of the complexities of the city of Fort Lauderdale.
And I guess from my perspective, show me you've had some experience doing it.
Yeah, yeah.
This is not this is a well-compensated, prestigious job. And we've had enough trouble with turnover that I think we need somebody that's really prepared to do the job.
I can say that, I made my own little matrix, just the way I used to do things for computer programs, which I don't have a computer program now because I'm retired, but, that was one of my own little matrix. That was one thing on mine was, you know, the size of where they had been a city manager or in a position like a city manager, and they were actually either way under our almost 190,000 people in the city or way over.
Yes.
So there was that, but if they were way under, that they didn't get a point. So that was me. That's how I found it, you know, important. I'm hearing what you say with the commissioner, but commissioners see a lot of things. So that was important to me also. And the number of employees.
Mhm.
Because I've had, you know, thousands of employees that I was responsible for, and I know what that's like, or how you manage that. So I thought that was important too.
The other thing that I noticed, I got a matrix as well, and public safety is very high on mine. And if you look at the greatest challenge and things we picked up from the surveys, if it's homelessness, crime reduction, and so forth, there were very few, I can count on like maybe 3 fingers that even mentioned, there was one person that mentioned homelessness. And, you know, anyway, these are 2,
Yeah.
and maybe 3, some public safety background. And that concerns me.
That was also on my matrix, so that's why I know those.
Yeah,
I'm with you on that. And affordable housing.
yes, there are a couple that mentioned affordable
Yeah, a
housing.
couple.
Yeah.
They were strong on development and fiscal controls and all that. Well, most of them brought that subject up, but when it came to getting the job done and fixing the problems that we've identified around this table and our communities identified, there are a lot of them just didn't address those issues.
Yeah, and I think probably because a lot of it's driven by what your city's ordinances are, and what your city's laws are. I would think the more important thing would be how collaborative these people are as, you know, and how the personalities are, that they can work in conjunction with the various the local law enforcement agencies, manage the, you know, whatever direction the city needs to go in, work with the county, work with other municipalities. I don't know that that's something, I mean, we're not looking for an expert in, we're not hiring a police chief, that's the first thing. And we're not hiring someone who is an expert on, hopefully, you know, I think some of those things, and I'm trying to carefully say it because they're driven by what the city policy makers have decided they want to do on these issues. And it's managing and it's carrying out those things as opposed to, you know, here's the police chief.
Well, on that point, I agree with you because I don't know if anybody else noticed, but a person that had come from or working for a county rather than a city, but in the same kind of position, they don't seem to have like, I didn't notice they said anything about like commercial growth or economic growth. That doesn't seem to be like a county thing. So I thought, well, I guess why would you have experience in that? That's, I mean, if you think about even how our own Broward County works, they're not really so focused on that. So,
And are we so focused on it? I mean, if you listen to the citizen surveys, You know, they were like, I made a comment that was made, you know, they don't want, they want to stop some of the growth.
I know, I hear you, but I'm just saying, like, your point, where you work really drives what things you can experience in.
Any other general observations? I did, along with, Ron, and Mary Bernadette, your comments. I was actually focused on, the budgets of, the various municipalities. So of course, it was in line with some of your comments where it's a higher population and when there's more employees. Some of the budgets were very significant. But really, there were only 4 budgets out of the 13 that exceeded ours, our 1.1 million, 1 billion
Mhm.
budget in the city of Fort Lauderdale. So yeah, I mean, there was, you know, a municipality budget as small as 56 million included in the grouping. So yeah, I guess we'll find out more from Dele, how they were able to pull that. Perhaps it was from commission direction or comments. But yeah, I did my own kind of spreadsheet. The size of the budget was very important to me, so definitely keeping that in mind. I did note that in the larger budgets, 2 of the candidates were city managers or assistant city managers. And as Mary mentioned, the rest were county administrator or similar of these larger, or at least equivalent size. That was something that, you know, as far as our preferred knowledge, skills, and experience, one of the requirements was experience in a full service municipality of comparable size was specific. But I did note that Delhi and MGT checked the box that everyone had met. The requirement to be for most of them as for being a comparable community, except for a couple. So yeah, okay. So those are kind of overarching observations I think we all agree on, but it's nice to also have the survey results and remember what's important to our residents. Because that's a key factor in our decision.
Do you think Florida experiences?
What do you think?
I mean, I'm a newcomer, I've only been here 22 years. But I noticed when I got here and started getting involved in community activities, the Florida's a different world. I mean, the Sunshine Act is an example that you were talking about. I lived all over the country and never seen one quite as strong as Florida has.
Right.
So someone coming from Illinois or Jersey or California is going to obviously have a bigger learning curve in terms of how to get along in the state and work with state authorities as well as local and county. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think, I guess in my initial thoughts were prior to seeing the candidate list that it would be great if we had quite a few candidates from other municipalities in Florida. I guess we ended up having at least 6 out of 13.
Well, to live here now, yeah. Well, not necessarily
Or,
have experience here.
yeah, I guess six currently in state out of 13. And no, it's an important, I think, question for us to think about because Florida is so unique. Having said that, I mean, there were some interesting candidates from other states, you know.
There are.
I guess does the committee feel that, you know, I do think it's very important that we hear Deli's feedback, but are some of you at the point where you already kind of know the 6 that you would like to interview?
I think we should, yeah, I think we should wait before we narrow.
Yeah, no, not to narrow it now, but I'm just curious.
I already
Did
did my
you,
sheet, I thought we had to know what we were talking
Pretty
about.
much everyone's probably.
I think that like I mean, we will definitely wait for her, but I guess, did you feel that the packet kind of, that you were able to come up with at least 6 that you'd like to interview?
I have questions.
I just want to suggest that, yes, once she gets here, out of the 94, I would almost have assumed that if you were a city manager or an assistant city manager in Florida, you would have made the 13. So there was 2 of them here. There were an assistant city manager in Florida, a city manager in Florida. You're not on the 13. So that's, I'm very interested to see what the criteria was to get to the 13, and you know, we really only focused in on the 13. And I, as much as I'd love to bring in somebody from California or wherever it is, but I tell you what is really interesting to me in Florida is relationships between the county and the state. And you know, when the place is flooded, it's all a big problem. It's great if somebody has a relationship. So, and knowing the unique rules of Florida helped, I think, as well. But that was the one thing that struck me a little funny. And I don't know if there's any better people in here or not, but I just would have assumed that every city manager or assistant city manager is learn the ropes and, you know, they're take the next step up. So, and for me, it was very interesting that some folks that are hiring, are looking to come in, and some people that are looking to take the next step. So it was a mixed bag of a lot of people, and I'm anxious to hear what her criteria was.
Military also.
Yeah.
It's different.
We have a top gun on.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
But again, what was the thought process of following? So I'm anxious to have that.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great observation. Bernadette, you had a question?
No, I have questions for Dayle.
Oh, questions for David, yeah.
She texted, she's about 5 minutes away.
Okay.
Do you wanna take a restroom break?
Yeah, actually,
Before you
yes.
take the restroom break, I'll just give my comments. So to answer your question, on the front end, I don't know. I have to hear from her and interview people before I can even give you. Do I think our next city manager is in this group? My initial impressions were, that's it? That's as good as we get? So, you know, nothing against any of these folks who applied, but I was hoping for some rock stars, and I'm not seeing it in the write-ups. So, I wanna hear from her what headwinds she ran into when she was doing the search, if any.
Well, having just gone through, I guess, the city manager's process in one of the cities that my law firm represents, this is a good bunch. I mean, you know, all of them are highly degreed, you know, masters, public administration degrees, a doctorate degree. I mean, I think, I guess I'm not sure. Some of the people I have a question about, you know, what was the gap in employment, because I'm not quite sure how they overlay with what was given in the resume. A couple of the people I had a question about, you know, whether they were consulting, I guess, at the same time that they were working. I have questions like that, but it's not so much that they're not qualified. You
I
know?
didn't say that they weren't qualified. They're all, they all got the credentials.
Sure.
I mean, or they wouldn't be in this group, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're a rock star.
What's the
Yeah.
rock star in your view?
Somebody who's not necessarily looking, appreciated by their employer, hitting the ball out of the park with new and innovative programming on all of the areas that we're looking for: public safety, economic development, transportation, growth management.
Why would they apply?
Well, there's always a reason. And sometimes my experience in headhunting was that you just have to find out what their need is and then exploit it. And that's the best kind of people that we could get.
So just as another thought to that, and that would be great. But I think when you put, it takes a lot for people who are looking and are seriously considering, moving, they have to make, because this is a political environment, right? Being a city manager. So if you put your foot out there and you make application, your other commissioners, if you were in an environment where you were surviving and doing well and everybody sort of likes you, they're gonna start looking at other people, whether they say it to you or not. And so I think there are a lot of factors to weigh. We'll see what happens. And I'm not making any judgment anyway whatsoever about anything at this point. I have a totally blank slate and I'm just sort of taking in comments and processing them and probably regurgitating out more than I should, but I'm just giving it an alternative.
Yeah, no, I
guess,
think we need to be
viewpoint.
having unfettered discussions and getting everybody's viewpoint out.
I have a general question. Does anybody here know what the average life expectancy of a city manager is?
Bernadette?
Not
I
long,
think it-
not
Not
long.
long. I'm not talking about Fort Lauderdale, but in your general
I
experience.
think it depends on the
Depends
city.
on the city.
There's 7 years, I don't know if
It
it's.
depends on the
That
city.
was a great point on that. I did a little bit of internet research. And so I looked at when people were separating and what the news articles, opinions are, and I read through a lot of that. So some people were unanimously. Some people, there was a mixed bag. Well, it seemed like maybe it wasn't fair, but you know what I mean? So there's some interesting backgrounds of people that were actually doing the job. And you have to take with a grain of salt that, you can't please 5 people or 6 people, whatever it is. So, but when it's unanimous, then maybe that has a little more weight than, it was a mixed bag, there's something else going on. So, cause I'm looking for people that have already done it and they know, and oh, I can do this much better now, I've got this figured out, but then there's these other people that are just up and coming, right? They put their time in under that city manager, they've learned the ropes, and I guarantee if they had a chance to do it, now they could do it even better. So there's kind of a mixed bag in there, but Dan, I really had that same impression as in my first read through. And then I just tried to take a step back, like, what? When you meet these people, maybe it's different than what's here on paper.
Sure, yeah,
And
that's
so
why I got it, that's why I
trying
said
to
what I
keep an
said.
open mind and see how it goes, but it was tough for me to just say, okay, this is just gonna be the 6 I was struggling with. And then looking back, there's a couple of people on that 84 list.
Yeah, the list.
We'll have to listen and watch and see.
I think that one of the things I noticed on the list of 94 as well is that there were actually the majority of the people who applied for the job would not be eligible per our criteria. Just, I think it's great, but just for what we had said, this preferred knowledge skills, I think there were, people working in other professions perhaps that really didn't have this type of municipality administrative experience. I mean, it's great that they were interested in applying, but I was also surprised at, I kind of hold it down to who actually had been either an assistant city manager or city manager on that list 94 like you did, or county. And then a few of them actually didn't make this list, but out of the entire 94, I would say it seemed to me that less than 20 actually had been governing a municipality. That's just an observation, and maybe Dele can confirm or refuse that. Okay, well, no, I appreciate everyone's candor. I think we should recess very briefly. Did anyone else want to make a comment before we recess briefly, and then we'll start back up when Daley is here.
Just let you all know, I looked up the number of survey respondents for the city hall workshop. It was 200 survey respondents for the first workshop, so it was about the same.
About the same, okay. Okay, thank you,
And
Erica.
forgive me for not introducing Erica. Erica Johnson was her name.
Happy to be here.
Welcome. Yeah. Okay,
All right, ladies.
we will recess.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
restrooms on the other side. So 7 years is the average life.